Welcome back, everyone, to the Wisdom of Lao Tzu.
Great to be back. Today we're confronting a piece of ancient wisdom that feels less like self-help and maybe more like a stark warning about reality itself. We're opening chapter 30 of the Daodejing. And look, if you thought Lao Tzu was just about gentle philosophical reflections, well, maybe prepare yourself.
Yeah, this one hits differently. It's pretty stark. It's this cold, hard warning, almost like it's delivered straight from the cosmos, about power, force, destruction.
Yeah. Before we really dive into the harshness of chapter 30, it might be good to remember chapter 9 for a second.
Right, the gentle counsel. That chapter gave us some fundamental safety lines, didn't it?
Yeah.
Advice on humility, self-management.
Exactly. Lao Tzu told us, better to stop in time than to fill to the brim. And that other one, over-sharpen the blade and the edge will not last long.
That was really the wisdom of contentment, wasn't it? Knowing when to stop, when to let go of ambition.
Yeah, the principle seemed crystal clear. Once the task is done, the deed is accomplished, you retire. Simple. That was called the way of heaven. Seems easy enough when you're thinking about, personal life. But now we take that same peaceful wisdom and put it through the ringer. We test it against the cruelest reality, absolute military and political power. So we're shifting the whole context, not maintaining a sharp knife, but, wielding a nuclear arsenal.
Something like that. When a ruler has overwhelming military might, the temptation to just keep going, conquer everything, fill that cup way past the brim, well, it seems almost irresistible.
And that's the core question for today, isn't it? Can a leader with absolute force actually maintain that kind of restraint the Tao asks for? Can they still hear that quiet voice saying, retire after the accomplishment?
Or does the power itself just push them, compel them towards more and more expansion?
When you look at history, well, the answer seems pretty bleak, honestly.
It really does. That temptation, that absolute strength, it often turns out to be fatal. We see it with King Huang, the first emperor.
Right, he unifies China. Accomplishment of the millennium, basically.
You would think that would be enough. But no, he wasn't satisfied. He launches these brutal, draining campaigns. North against the Xiongnu, south against the Baiyu.
And it just bled the empire dry, didn't it? Led straight to its collapse almost immediately after he died.
Yeah, it's a pattern. And not just ancient China. Think about Napoleon in Europe.
Conquer the continent.
Yeah.
Unbelievable military power. But again,
couldn't stop. Pushed that one step too far. Into Russia. That catastrophic defeat in Moscow, well, that was the beginning of the end for him.
Or even, the 20th century, Hitler occupied half of Europe, a peak of physical power few humans have ever even approached.
But that same drive, that need for continual escalation, relying on sheer strength to just defy reality, it's like the universe itself had to push back, led straight to his own self-destruction.
They all reached that peak, that moment of accomplishment, and they all made that same fatal error. They didn't retire. They clung to that impulse for sheer, rigid strength. And that failure is exactly what Chapter 30 warns against. Lao Tzu's lesson, on the surface, is simple. Do not be forceful. But it's not just gentle advice for being humble, is it?
Not at all. It's a solemn warning. Based on a universal law, really, about survival versus annihilation. We're diving deep into this iron law today, why what reaches its prime must begin to decline. And why violence itself, well, it's like a debt the universe always collects.
Okay, let's unpack this with the text itself. Lao Tzu here sounds almost like a cold mathematician or physicist.
Yeah, the anti-military advisor, just observing the objective laws of force and its consequences, coldly.
So let's hear D.C. Lao's translation of Chapter 30.
It's stark, all right. One who assists the ruler of men by means of the way does not intimidate the empire by a show of arms. This is something which is liable to rebound.
Okay, stop right there. Liable to rebound. That feels like the absolute core of it. It really is. It sets the stage for everything else. Let's continue. Where troops have encamped, there will brambles grow. In the wake of a mighty army, bad harvests follow without fail. Such devastating imagery. Then it shifts. One who is good aims only at bringing his campaign to conclusion and dare not thereby intimidate. So there's a right way, even if force is needed. Yes, but with extreme caution, he continues. Bring it to a conclusion, but do not brag. Bring it to a conclusion, but do not be arrogant. He repeats arrogant, emphasizing pride. Bring it to a conclusion, but only when there is no choice. Bring it to a conclusion, but do not intimidate. Wow, that's a lot of don'ts after the do. Exactly. And the final lines connected all to this universal principle. A creature in its prime doing harm to the old is known as going against the way. That which goes against the way will come to an early end. Okay, the opening lines hit hard. Does not intimidate the empire by a show of arms. rejecting military parades, saber-rattling, all of it. And then that crucial line you flag. This is something which is liable to rebound. It's the ultimate Taoist risk assessment, isn't it? It really is. The universal boomerang effect, stated just so simply.
Yeah, Lao Tzu's just observing force is an energy, and it seems to love to, well, retaliate. It comes back.
Yeah.
If you need a modern analogy, maybe it's a bit like Newton's third law.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Sort of. Every time you impose violent action, you create this reaction of hatred, resistance, resentment within the system. It doesn't just disappear.
So the harder you throw that spear of violence today,
The faster that boomerang of hatred comes back at you tomorrow.
yeah, conquering someone isn't creating stability, it's creating future instability. You're sowing the seeds of your own problems down the line.
Exactly. And the consequences aren't just, political or abstract. They're physical, visceral. Those post-war sketches Lao Tzu paints, where troops have encamped, there will brambles grow.
It's like observational science applied to warfare. He's just describing what he sees.
It's utter devastation, isn't it? Environmental, socioeconomic. What exactly is happening when the brambles take over? Well, think about it. The civilized systems just break down. Farmers get dragged off to fight, or they flee. Irrigation ditches, canals, these need constant cooperation to maintain.
Right, they fall apart instantly.
So the fields are abandoned, the land just reverts, goes back to wilderness. You can picture those silent, poisoned fields near Verdun after World War I, where nothing grew for decades. Lao Tzu saw that same scar millennia earlier, and the immediate follow-on. In the wake of a mighty army, bad harvests follow without fail. It's a domino effect, completely.
Yeah.
The able-bodied workers are gone, maybe dead. The social structure needed for agriculture collapses, so famine follows. And after famine,
Plague, disease.
inevitably, war doesn't just kill soldiers, it destroys the very machinery that keeps everyone else alive.
So, okay, if war is this utter catastrophe, but sometimes that might feel like the only option, what then? That's where Lao Tzu defines the conduct of the truly wise leader. One who is good aims only at bringing his campaign to a conclusion and dare not thereby intimidate. The analogy of the surgeon versus the butcher, that fits here, doesn't it?
Perfectly. The wise person, the Taoist ruler, uses force if they absolutely must, like a top surgeon uses a scalpel. Precise. Singular goal. Remove the disease, bring the campaign to its conclusion, and the surgeon stops immediately after. Right, exactly. The key is restraint after the action. They don't make an extra cut just to show off or decide to remove a healthy organ while they're in there. They dare not thereby intimidate.
Whereas the forceful ruler, the butcher,
Uses violence mainly to display power,
Yeah.
to dominate. They leave ruin behind because the goal was the display of power, not the remedy.
and this difference leads straight into those 5 disciplines, or maybe 5 don'ts, that strict internal code for the reluctant victor.
It's a sequence of internal checks, much harder maybe than winning the actual battle. You start with the task, bring it to a conclusion, but then immediately the psychological work begins.
Do not brag. Do not be arrogant twice for emphasis on pride, only when there is no choice. And finally, do not intimidate.
It's a victory that has to be drenched in humility, in necessity, in absolute non-aggression going forward. And Lao Tzu wraps it all up by linking this political or military failure to that universal law again. A creature in its prime doing harm to the old. That which goes against the way will come to an early end. Yeah, the message is clear. Pushing for absolute rigid strength. That's fundamentally against the flow of the universe. It guarantees decay, fast decay, collapse.
Okay, that reading gives us the framework. But now we need to dive deeper into the core wisdom here. Chapter 30 has these layers, right? Cosmic laws, political insights, all tangled together. Let's start with that critical opening warning.
Right, let's set the stage first. The bedrock of Taoist political thinking is this non-coercive principle. It's deep. Even the earliest texts we have, like the Gudian bamboo slips, they emphasize that the ideal ruler does not desire to intimidate the empire with arms.
So the warning isn't just about the action, but the desire itself, the ambition to dominate.
Exactly. The Zen master Hunshan King put it perfectly. Even just a show of arms, just flexing your military muscle is already an excessive affair. It's already starting down the wrong path.
Okay, so if that desire, that show of force, is launching the boomerang, let's trace its path back. You mentioned 4 dimensions.
Yeah, we can unpack liable to rebound across 4 interconnected levels. Let's start with the most immediate, the most practical. All right, level 1, pragmatic political science, the direct rebound. This is just hard-nosed political realism. Commentators like Chen Guiying pointed out the obvious cycle of revenge. Kill another's father, and he will kill yours. It's simple cause and effect.
Violence doesn't solve things, it just transfers energy, creates grievances.
Precisely. When you conquer people through sheer force, you haven't created stability, you've created hostages, basically. People nursing this deep sense of wrong, waiting for their chance.
It sounds like filling a basement with dynamite. It might look calm on the surface, but the potential energy
Is immense. And you have to spend enormous resources, military, psychological, just keeping a lid on it. You're guaranteeing that future generations inherit this state of high alert, this tension.
So it's not just bad morals, it's bad strategy.
Absolutely. Deadliest saw it as basic physics. Force pushed to its extreme always reverses. You don't get stability by maxing out your power. You get it by maintaining flexibility, resilience, staying below that breaking point. Okay, that's the practical blowback, political hatred. But does Lao Tzu suggest something more? Cosmic? A higher court of justice involved? Well, that leads us to the next level, level 2. Profound moral law, the retribution of karma. So connecting the rebound to destiny, the way of heaven always returns.
Exactly. In this view, history isn't just random events. It's like a great tribunal recording every unjust act, every abuse of power.
And the Song Dynasty scholar Ch.30 actually tried to formalize this. He summoned historical witnesses.
He did. It's a fascinating thought experiment. He brings 4 key figures to the stand, all known for their military aggression and pursuit of power.
Who were they? A powerful duke from the spring and autumn period, an arrogant king, the empire builder Qin Shi Huang himself, and the expansionist martial emperor of Han, Emperor Wu, all reached peaks of military might.
And the verdict from history's tribunal.
Damning. Unanimous. Qin Shi Huang, who built the empire on unprecedented violence, dies suddenly, far from home, and his empire just implodes, dissolves into chaos and civil war almost overnight.
And Emperor Wu of Han.
His glorious campaigns brought incredible hardship and destitution to his own people. Late in life, he was actually forced to issue this profound public apology, confessing his military failures and their cost.
Wow. So Suche's conclusion. The evidence across millennia is overwhelming. What is despised by men and gods, none has ever escaped. Retribution might take time, its form might vary, but it's certain. It's woven into the fabric of things. Okay, from political consequence to moral inevitability, that's a big step. But let's go deeper still. Metaphysics. How did Wang Bi interpret this rebound? You said he thought the cosmos itself pushes back. This is where it gets really radical, maybe the most profound layer. Level 3. Ultimate metaphysics, the reversion to Wu Wei. Wu Wei non-action, effortless action.
Right. Wang Bi, who was just brilliant, argued that the real meaning of rebound is that the universe naturally wants to revert back to Wu Wei. Think of the cosmos having a default state, relaxed, harmonious, in equilibrium.
And violence, especially large-scale war, is the most extreme form of conscious doing, of forcing things. It's the ultimate violation of Wu Wei. Wang Bi uses this great analogy. Imagine stretching a rubber band as tight as it can possibly go. War is that act. It creates this immense internal tension, not just politically, but cosmically. And the universe itself contains this force, the Tao, that wants to release that tension.
Exactly. It's an irresistible, fundamental force pulling that rubber band back to its relaxed state, back to non-action. The universe seeks equilibrium.
So the empire collapsing isn't really a punishment in this view. It's more like a correction, a gravitational pull back to the norm. Precisely. Fighting the fundamental flow of the universe isn't just risky, it guarantees eventual collapse. It fits perfectly with Chapter 40. Reversal is the movement of the Tao. Okay, that's mind-bending. Is there a fourth dimension? Yes, the ethical dimension, really focused on the ruler's inner state. This comes from the Han scholar He Shanggong, level 4. Ruler's self-cultivation, inward self-reflection. How did he interpret liable to rebound?
He saw it as being prone to turn back and blame oneself. This completely internalizes the risk, turns it into a tool for governance.
How so?
It becomes the most effective form of national defense. A ruler aligned with the Tao understands that external problems, rebellions, border disputes, whatever, often have roots in internal issues. Policy failures, maybe, or even a lack of personal virtue in the leadership.
So instead of immediately blaming outsiders and reaching for the military solution,
the wise ruler looks inward first. What did we do wrong here? Is our own house in order? By examining their own policies and conduct, they address the root cause. They prevent the external boomerang by essentially catching it before it's even thrown.
Wow. So liable to rebound isn't just one thing. It's political reality, moral law, cosmic physics, and a call for deep self-awareness all wrapped up together. True strength isn't projecting force outward, it's maintaining that inner balance and avoiding the need for force in the first place.
That's the essence of it. This part of the chapter feels so concrete, so sorrowful. After talking about cosmic laws, Lao Tzu forces us to just look down at the ground, that image. Where troops have encamped, there will brambles grow. In the wake of a mighty army, bad harvests follow without fail. It sounds almost like proto-ecology. It really does. It's an incredibly profound early example of environmental awareness directly linked to human actions, specifically warfare. And what's fascinating, modern textual scholarship suggests the oldest versions might only have had that core image. Where troops have encamped, there will brambles grow.
Really? Just the bramble.
Possibly. The line about bad harvests, while obviously true and connected, might be a slightly later clarification or addition. But that central heartbreaking image of the brambles, the land itself, rejecting the violence that seems to be the ancient core. War is fundamentally anti-nature, anti-Tao.
Let's break down the destruction Lao Tzu is describing. You mentioned 3 levels, starting with the obvious, the visible.
Right.
Level 1, the visible wounds socioeconomic disaster. This is the immediate, practical reality. Commentators like Gong, Che, they saw it clearly. Mass conscription pulls the strong young men out of the fields. Who's left to farm? Nobody. And the infrastructure collapses.
Exactly. Irrigation systems need constant cooperative maintenance. That disappears in wartime, so the fields get abandoned, destroyed. The support systems of civilization crumble.
And the land doesn't just lie fallow. It actively regresses, back to wilderness, overgrown with brambles. It's like civilization is literally retreating.
It is. And tied to that, as scholars like Fu Perong point out, is disease. Armies on the move, displaced populations, lack of sanitation, casualties. It's the perfect storm for plagues. War brings famine, famine brings disease. The land isn't just abandoned, it's often poisoned, too.
Okay, that's the visible horror.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this idea of an invisible trauma. You mentioned Ch.30 before. Can we slow down and explain that? What's Qi first?
Sure. Qi, pronounced Qi, is the fundamental life force, the vital energy that animates everything, individuals, society, nature itself. It's the basis of health and vitality.
Okay, so it's Ch.30, killing Qi.
Okay.
Level. Level 2, the invisible trauma, cosmic killing energy, Ch.30. This is a really startling idea from the Han scholar Gong. He proposed that large-scale warfare doesn't just cause physical destruction, it generates this powerful, toxic energy, Ch.30, killing energy. So the violence, the hatred, the brutality, it's not just in people's minds. It literally creates a negative energy field.
That's the idea. This violent energy permeates the environment, it contaminates the atmosphere, cosmically speaking, and heaven, or the cosmos, responds to this pervasive Ch.30 with its own destructive energy, maybe drought, floods, pests, things that cause the harvest to fail.
So a bad harvest isn't just bad luck or poor farming, it's a symptom of a deeper spiritual crisis.
In this view, yes. When society is blanketed in this negative, killing Qi, the healthy, harmonious Qi that sustains life and civilization withers, it leads to a kind of spiritual and cultural famine year, as Daodejing described it.
Wow. That means even if you win the war, you've already poisoned the atmosphere for everyone, including your own side. That's powerful. What's the deepest philosophical level here?
The weeping of the Tao, anti-nature crime. This gets to the heart of Taoist cosmology. The Tao is often called the mother, the source that nurtures all things, endlessly creating and sustaining life.
And war is the opposite of that. It's destruction.
It's the most extreme form of human doing, of forcing things against their nature. It's an open betrayal, a direct attack on the Tao's fundamental principle of creation and nurturing.
So when human actions become so violently not of the Tao, when destruction becomes the goal, the mother withdraws her grace.
The connection is broken. The nurturing stops. The land reverts to chaos, to brambles. Those brambles aren't just an unfortunate side effect. They are the ultimate physical proof that war is fundamentally against the Tao. The desolate field is the silent indictment. Trying to grab glory through arms ultimately leaves you with nothing but thorns.
Okay, so given that force is a boomerang and war poisons the land, this next part becomes crucial. It's the practical guide, maybe, for the reluctant victor. The code of conduct for when force feels absolutely unavoidable. Exactly. And the entire ethical framework here hinges on how we understand that one key verb to conclude, or gumga.
Right. You mentioned a scholars' roundtable to debate this. Let's hear the different takes. Wang Bi first.
Wang Bi sets a really high bar. For him, gum means to relieve, as in you only use force to rescue people or alleviate immediate distress. It's purely defensive, purely humanitarian.
That sounds difficult maybe in real-world politics. What about Sima Guang? Sima Guang, the great historian, offered something more pragmatic. He saw Gong as simply to accomplish the specific necessary task. Like the surgeon removing the tumor, job done, stop. It's humble, focused only on the mission objective, not on victory in a grand sense.
Okay, that feels more achievable. And Su Che, he had an ethical angle.
Yes, Suche saw Gong as meaning secondary. War, even if necessary, is always a fallback, a regrettable remedial measure. It's an admission that the primary tools, virtuous governance, diplomacy, wu wei, have already failed.
So if you have to resort to the secondary tool, force, there's absolutely nothing to celebrate.
Precisely. It's a sign of failure, not success. But notice the common thread in all these interpretations.
Only. Just do what's necessary and nothing more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just the minimum required. And crucially, the victor must dare not thereby intimidate. If your goal was defending your border, once the border is secure, gum is achieved. Stop. If you then march deep into the enemy's territory just to show you can.
That's intimidation.
Yeah.
That's violating the principle. You've used the necessary goal as an excuse for hegemony. You've already stepped off the way, which leads us right into the internal struggle. Those 5 don'ts. The psychological cleanup operation after the messy business of force.
Why is this part so hard? Because winning feels good. Pride is natural.
It's the natural human reaction, especially after a difficult, costly struggle. So that triple injunction, do not brag, do not be boastful, do not be proud, it's trying to counteract that immediate toxic impulse.
And Wang Bi's logic here was, since it was a terrible necessity, what's there to be proud of?
Exactly. If you truly undertook it only when there is no choice, the feeling shouldn't be triumph, but gravity, sadness, compassion for the losses on all sides. The sage isn't beating their chest, they're heavy-hearted.
But maintaining that mindset only when there is no choice, especially when everyone around you might be celebrating, that takes incredible self-mastery. It does. As Yukiyu pointed out, that phrase should convey this deep sense of tragedy, almost helplessness. The truly good leader, even in victory, sees the failure of peace, the loss of life.
And Liu Xiaogan added that it's basically an admission that the highest ideal, Wu Wei, didn't work.
Yeah. The fact that force was required is, in itself, proof of a prior breakdown, a failure of the Taoist ideal.
So the image isn't the conquering hero on a white horse, it's the exhausted surgeon, maybe. Still feeling the weight of what happened. That's a perfect image. And Chen Ganing's metaphor just nails it. The taste of this kind of necessary victory should be like a mouthful of ashes. Wow. Filled with emptiness, sorrow for the destruction caused, even the necessary destruction. And that feeling, that taste of ashes, is what ensures you immediately follow the final don't. Do not intimidate. You put down the weapon in your hand, and maybe more importantly, you extinguish the killing thought, the desire for more conflict in your heart. And that feeling, that taste of ashes, is what ensures you immediately follow the final don't. Okay, the chapter's final lines seem to list this whole discussion onto another level. It frames the specific warning about military force within this huge, fundamental cosmic law. Lao Tzu says pursuing prime strength, Zhuang, is itself against the way. Why? Why is being at the absolute peak, number 1, so inherently dangerous in this view?
Because the Tao, the way of the universe, isn't about steps, points, especially not peaks. It's about flow, flexibility, cycles. Think about nature. Wang Bi reminds us, a whirlwind doesn't last all morning, a downpour doesn't last all day. Power is naturally transient.
So trying to achieve and hold on to ultimate strength is fundamentally unnatural.
It's an attempt to defy time, to freeze flux. It's like trying to stop the river from flowing, or as Yukiyu put it, like an athlete trying to stay forever at the absolute peak of the parabola, the highest point of their jump. It's hubris.
It's inherently rigid, brittle.
Exactly. And that rigidity, that constant 100% tension required to maintain the peak, is hostile to the universe's fluid nature. That tension builds up internally like winding a spring too tight. It doesn't lead to lasting power. It guarantees a rapid natural collapse. It's the overinflated balloon. The very strength makes it fragile.
And history provides the evidence again.
Always. Think about hegemon King Shangyu. The sources describe him as basically invincible in battle, the strongest man of his time, peak Zhuang.
But that strength made him complacent, arrogant.
Yes. And because he was so rigid in his strength, so reliant on it, one single decisive defeat was enough to completely break him. He couldn't adapt. Or King Fuchai of Wu, another classic example. He achieved this brilliant, brief peak of power, contending for hegemony over all of China.
And
Swiftly destroyed. by the very state he had previously vanquished and humiliated because Fuchai had burned out all his resources, all his vital energy just reaching and trying to hold that rigid peak.
It's like the saying, a spent arrow cannot pierce silk. Once you've reached that maximum exertion, you have no reserve left.
Precisely. Prime strength contains the seeds of its own decay, and we can look at this physiologically too, in terms of the nation's vital energy. It's key.
How does relying on strength damage the national key?
Hanshin Dakin drew a direct link. He interpreted prime doing harm to the old as the overexertion of strength consuming the fundamental vital energy. Think of it like constantly sprinting. Whether it's through endless war, excessive indulgence, or ruthless competition, you're burning through your core life force.
So a nation constantly at war, constantly conscripting its youth, constantly pushing for dominance.
It's consuming its national key. It's burning the candle at both ends. It's essentially performing a slow national suicide, guaranteeing an early end for the empire, just as Lao Tzu warned.
This really drives home that idea we touched on earlier. Sometimes an imperfection, a limitation, is actually a source of strength or longevity. Like Fu Pirong's story about his stutter.
Yes. Preventing him from becoming overly arrogant. That slight incompleteness forced humility, flexibility. It prevented him from reaching that rigid, brittle 100% peak that guarantees decline. It kept him adaptable, reliant on something deeper than sheer self-will.
Which leads finally to the transcendental answer. Suche's insight about longevity.
This is the profound Taoist secret. How do you avoid the inevitable decline that follows the peak?
What's the answer?
Suche said the sage never reaches his prime.
Never reaches the peak.
Exactly. By consciously maintaining a dynamic state of, say, 95% completion, always leaving a little room, staying a little flexible, never hardening into that absolute 100% state, the sage avoids the rigidity. They stay fluid, resilient, enduring. They step outside the cycle of peak and decline that claims everything else that strives for that absolute maximum.
Wow. Okay. So Chapter 30 really is this incredible system. It weaves together political pragmatism, ecological awareness, deep ethical compassion, and fundamental metaphysical law.
And the core error of militarism, of relying on force, is that it tries to use rigid peak strength against a universe that operates on flow, cycles, and resilience. It's doomed from the start.
All right, let's bring this down from cosmic laws and collapsing empires to our everyday lives. Because we live in environments, work, home, definitely online, that often seem to reward the loudest voice, the quickest rebuttal, the display of strength. Strong survive, right?
That's the prevailing narrative.
But the real lesson from Chapter 30 seems to be the opposite. True strength, true goodness, lies in knowing when not to use force. It's like the master martial artist whose greatest skill is restraint.
Exactly. So the core mental technique we need to cultivate is what we could call the power of the pause. We have to actively train ourselves to recognize those incredibly rare, genuine, no other choice moments.
And the rest of the time, the other 99%.
Maintain that do not be forceful mindset. That's how we conserve our own personal kai, or our energy, and stop creating those negative rebound effects in our relationships, our careers, everywhere.
Okay, so how do we start training this? First step is recognizing the impulse.
Yeah, spot the warning signs. That feeling when your jaw tightens or you feel that burning urge to fire off a sarcastic email or jump in and fix your friend's problem before they even finish telling you about it. That physical tension, that mental urgency, that's the signal.
Okay, signal detected. What's the technique? It sounds ridiculously simple, but it's incredibly hard in the moment. The 3-second pause. The instant you feel that impulse to react forcefully, stop, don't speak, don't type, don't move. Silently count. 1, 2, 3. And while counting, just observe your internal state. Where's the tension in your body? Are you breathing shallowly? Heart racing? Those are that first reactive thought. Just notice it without judgment for 3 seconds.
Okay. 3 seconds are up. Now what? Now engage the wise question. Ask yourself honestly, is this really a no other choice moment? Be ruthless with yourself. Is immediate forceful action truly necessary right now? And if the answer is honestly yes,
then respond with the absolute minimum necessary force. The surgeon's scalpel, not the butcher's cleaver. Solve the immediate problem and stop.
And if the answer is no, which, let's be honest, it probably usually is,
then choose a different path. Maybe silence is the answer. Maybe asking a calm question. Maybe just letting it go. Anything other than that initial forceful impulse. Let's try applying this. Online debates. We all fall into this trap. You see something wrong, infuriating. Pause. 1, 2, 3. Ask, will my angry instant correction actually change anything? Or will it just generate more heat, more shocky, make the other person dig in harder, and guarantee a nasty rebound? Often, the most powerful non-forceful action is Closing the browser tab. Letting the Tao handle it. Okay, what about family moments? Your kid spills something. Your partner forgets something important.
Lecture. Correct. Show them the error of their ways, forcefully.
All right, so pause. 1, 2, 3. Ask. Is launching into a correction right now, in this tone, more important than understanding what happened or preserving the long-term warmth in this relationship? Maybe the minimum necessary force is just, hey, what happened? Or maybe dealing with it calmly later, not the immediate forceful reaction. Makes sense. Work meetings. People interrupt, correct each other constantly, often to show they're smart or in charge. Classic display of intimidation, often disguised as efficiency. See a flaw in a colleague's idea. Impulse. Jump in. Point it out. Show your superiority. Pause. 1, 2, 3. Ask. Will this perceived error cause catastrophic damage in the next 5 minutes if I don't interrupt? Is my need to be seen as correct more important than group harmony or letting the idea develop? Most minor things sort themselves out, or a correction can be offered gently, privately, later. Interrupting is usually about ego, about intimidation. And for listeners who find the 3-second pause works, you suggested an advanced challenge.
Yeah, try extending it. Can you pause for 3 minutes before responding to that annoying email? Can you pause for 3 hours, or even overnight, before reacting something that feels urgent? Give the initial surge of adrenaline and anger time to dissipate. You'll often find the absolutely critical issue wasn't that important after all. Lao Tzu was right.
And the pause journal idea. Just jot down moments when you managed the pause, when you chose restraint over force. Note the outcome. Did the world end? Probably not. Did you feel better, conserve energy, avoid conflict? Probably yes. This reinforces the learning. It trains your body's memory, helps you internalize that wisdom. Conclude, but do not intimidate.
So we've really dug into this idea today. Violence, force it's a boomerang, a debt that always comes due, and striving for that absolute peak of strength, swang, it's just setting yourself up for a fall. Real wisdom, enduring strength, lies in self-restraint, avoiding excess, staying flexible, never letting the rubber band get stretched to its absolute breaking point.
Yeah.
I want to leave everyone listening with this final thought, a powerful summary we pulled from the commentaries, really capturing Chapter 30's essence.
Do not intimidate the world with strength, for the strong will surely break. Only by walking the way can one endure.
That concept of endurance, of lastingness through non-force, it sets up our next deep dive perfectly. Because if war is so dangerous, so fraught with peril, only to be used as a last resort, well, what about the tools themselves? How should we view weapons?
Lao Tzu has some radical things to say about that in Chapter 31. He calls weapons inauspicious instruments, tools that bring bad luck, basically.
And he goes even further. He states, flat out, that victory is not a thing of beauty. Think about that. It completely flips our usual script about military glory. It really does. So, if war is sometimes unavoidable and somehow you achieve a great victory against the odds, how should you mark that moment? What's the appropriate response? And this is the mystery for next time. Why does Lao Tzu demand that we treat a military triumph with the solemn, sorrowful rites of a funeral for a victory? What does that mean?
That's the question we'll tackle next time. Join us as we explore the ultimate Taoist perspective on warfare, weapons, and the surprising connection between victory and grief.